celebration, so we'll move right to our communications from staff, guests, and district residents, our public comments section. Staff guests and district residents may address the Board of Education during the communications from staff guests and district residents portion of the agenda. Signed in below. Please also be informed that comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual, and because we have a number of people, I will try and hold to that. Sometimes a little bit more flexible, but I want to try and stick to that as much as possible. Thank you. And please conduct yourself with respect towards others during your comments. Thank you. First up is Billy McKinney.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
I think that's it. Thank you very much. Just have to be smarter than the mic. My name is Billy McKinney. I'm a resident of the city of Zion, Illinois. I'm also the mayor. I'm here this evening to address the board, Dr. Rodriguez, about comments that were made by your board member, Kathy Champagne, at the last board meeting. And the comments that she made was that the city of Zion and the administration was not transparent, sneaky, behind the scene, underhanded, and not professional. Now, I have a great deal of regard for Ms. Champagne. We've worked together and talked about a lot of things to improve our community. And I always respect her opinion about things, but I thought those comments were biased, and I thought they were irresponsible. And here's why. For the last 10 years in this city, since I've been a part of the fabric of the city council, we've worked hard to be transparent, to restore faith from our residents about local government. The comments weren't specific as to what we were underhanded and sneaky about, but I can only surmise it was about the reallocation of the CEJA money, in which the city of Zion worked so hard to get $15 million a year for the next now 22 years for the residents here. That money, as we worked on that plan, what we did as a city in being a good community partner was to include all of the taxing bodies in that, with the thought and process being that we would lower the burden on our tax residents. That was it. The comments, while I might have appeared passionate and a little angry at the city council meeting, it was a slap in the face to everyone that I work with. Some of those people are here this evening. Our city administrator, who came up, David Nabel, who came up with the plan because the federal efforts weren't going anywhere. It stung, but I try to take my ego out of it, but I'm always going to do what I can to protect the people that I work with in the effort we make to make this community improve. The school boards are a part of our community. It's not just the city of Zion. My reaction to Dr. Rodriguez and the comments I made are very clear for what I had to say. A couple years ago, we stood in one part of the building and we talked about collaboration and teamwork and what that meant. And when the Zion Leaders Group was formed, and I can remember those comments like they were yesterday, we said there's no more finger pointing or throwing each other under the bus.
I'm sorry, I failed to give you a heads up, but the time is up, but please finish your comments.
I will finish. I'll be brief.
Keep talking.
I felt like we were thrown under the bus. If that would have been you at one of our city council meetings, what I would have done, or what our city administrator would have done, is we would have corrected the error in the comments. I've heard nothing from you since then. For me and the people I work with, that was a big breach of trust. And you can't be a teammate sometimes. You have to be a teammate all the time. It's a cone that was knocked over. We haven't talked since that point, and I'll be brief here, finish my comments, Mr. Nordstrom. But that hurt. And I only judge people by their actions. And I was angry with you for a little bit, but I was angry with me probably more because of one thing. We've welcomed you into this community. Every bit of communication that we've had has been accessible to you. We've treated you like a partner. In creating this legislation with Rep. Joyce Mason, we included the schools and the other taxing bodies to be a good community partner. Simple. So it's my hope that as we can move past this, but I was tremendously disappointed in your actions and not sticking up for people that have fought for you in this community. Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up is Dave Nabel. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. For those who know me, good to see you again. For those who don't, I'm the city administrator for the city of Zion. Proud ZB class of '94 as well. But I want to make sure that I address some of the misinformation that's been out there. For those who don't know, all the taxing bodies have been working on legislation related to the nuclear fuel rights. This was an effort started 12 and a half years ago by me, and with, at the time, Mayor Hill, in conjunction with all the other taxing bodies. There was an intergovernmental agreement between us and the taxing bodies on how to allocate those federal funds should we ever get it, and that we were jointly paying towards that effort. I bring this up because I've had a lot of staff members, a lot of other board members that have said, we've been paying towards this, we've been working towards this. That's the federal. I have regular meetings with Duckworth staff, with our federal legislators trying to come up with ideas. We're still pushing on that. But 3 years ago, when there was talk of a bailout for ComEd at the state level, the city of Zion pushed the idea of saying, don't forget about us before you give them a bailout. And it was a Hail Mary. People said, we'll never get it done, it won't happen. But we pushed for that with Representative Mason at the time, Representative Yingling, and we sat in the mayor's office, myself, the mayor, and the two reps, to draft this legislation, to come up with the idea, to pitch the problems. And I went to the group and I said, hold on, we might have something great here. And we continued that effort. There was no funds going for that. There was no work asked by the other taxing bodies. As the mayor said, we wanted to make sure everyone was in the legislation with the intent to reduce taxes. There have been comments that have come to me, questions come to me saying, mixing up the two. Those are separate, and I want to make sure that's understood. Additionally, there is the importance of information completeness on what's presented. One of the points I made at the council meeting was the resolution that was on the last meeting on the reallocation talks about the reallocation where the city's getting 60% from up from 15%. But there was nothing in there about the communication or the intent that the entirety of that increase would be abated. And we would all do an intergovernmental agreement, we would all allocate, we would try and get the tax bill to reflect everyone's contribution to that. Now that may have been discussed with some of the board members by staff, but that was not the resolution, and I've had residents and other people contact me saying,
30 seconds.
thank you, is that true, are you granting it? And I said, well, what was presented was true on the percentages, but it wasn't the complete story. The abatement piece was not included. Once that was explained, I went, oh, that's different. So when you present information to the public, it's not transparent to present part of the information. It creates a bad image when you're withholding information, when you're not telling the whole story. I've been working on this for 12 years with federal legislators, national nuclear panels I've presented on. I know this stuff inside and out, and I have never had a board member come and ask me to verify any questions or any information that they have. I am always available. Please, if you have questions, reach out to me. I think that's the biggest frustration about this, is that a lot could have been avoided with a call or a question to address the information and make sure it was accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mason.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me here, Representative Joyce Mason. In 2021, I co-sponsored and helped pass state legislation known as CEJA, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, that takes steps to address our climate crisis, move to 100% renewable energy, create good paying, clean energy jobs, and bring employment training and opportunities to communities like ours, those who have been affected financially by environmental pollution of big energy companies. As this legislation was being drafted, I saw the rare opportunity that we had discussed to help repair the damage to our community that was caused by the decommissioned nuclear power plant that sits on our shores. We worked hard to negotiate language in this bill that would guarantee the Zion community funding, and most importantly, property tax relief for residents and businesses that have been buried for so long, trying to make up the funds that were lost with the closing of the plant, to hold up the community and indeed these schools that were suddenly in dire need. I consider the language that I negotiated into this legislation to be my greatest achievement in the 5 years I've been serving, because I know how much people in our community are hurting. I hear from people every single day who are losing their homes, who can no longer afford to pay their rent, who are making impossible choices between mortgage or rent payments, groceries, medication, medical care, school supplies, car repairs, and other basic needs. Recently, there have been a great many statements, a letter, and a newspaper article regarding this money. And as the person who authored this section of the legislation that is bringing this funding in, and as the person who passed this legislation for our community, I need to make some facts clear. Number one, this money is state legislation that state legislators passed. Two, when drafting this legislation, the legislative intent from day one was and always has been to first provide substantial property tax relief to the people of our community to ease their burden, and then to provide additional funds to our taxing bodies. Three, it is up to the state legislature and no one else to determine where this money will be allocated. It is not up to any taxing body, and it is not up for negotiation or debate. The plan to provide property tax relief has been public from day one. In the press release that I issued in 2021, the heading is, Mason secures property tax relief and decarbonization with clean energy bill. Since 2021, in meetings with all stakeholders, the legislative intent was made clear and thoroughly discussed, and anyone who tells you differently, who is in those meetings, is not being honest with you. As a former school board member, I would find that very concerning if I were you. Let me be completely clear. As an educator, as the proud mom of a teacher in this community, the sister of a teacher, the former vice president of the Woodland School Board, a member of the House K-12 Elementary Education Curriculum and Policies Committee, and the chairperson of the Child Care Accessibility and Early Childhood Education Committee, I am and always have been committed to providing the best education to the kids here. I fully understand the gaps that exist and those that don't. I was advocating for the evidence-based funding formula that brings schools more money from the state before ever dreaming of running for state representative. And in Springfield, I have spent considerable time advocating for additional money to be spent in our budget to go to K-12 education. This year we added $350 million additional dollars. I have provided this school and other schools in our community with capital funds, with extra money from the budget. I have provided nearly every student probably with school supplies because their families can't afford it. In addition, I've provided funding for schools, for parks, for playgrounds, roads, municipal buildings, public safety initiatives, safety equipment, and the lakefront and Illinois Beach State Park. The residents of our community have a great many needs, and the intent of the legislation that was passed by the state can and will provide significant property tax relief to our community and infuse additional funding to our schools and other taxing bodies. In doing so, our community will be a place where families can afford to live, to learn, to recreate, and to do business and open businesses, along with more support for our first responders who protect us. We are on our way to better days in this community because we took all of that into consideration when we very carefully crafted this legislation. If people have questions about the state legislation and its intent, I am very happy to discuss them with those who want to have a respectful dialogue. But what I won't accept and what has been happening are lies, half-truths, name-calling, public rants by people who have not been given the full information, and I won't accept unwarranted attacks on our Zion officials who work so hard day in and day out for our community. They deserve better, and the people of our community deserve better than what's been happening here. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure the representative, especially because of her background and involvement in this, had some extra times, but for the rest of the speakers, please try and stick as you can to the 3 minutes. Larry Stevens.
Good evening. As all of you know, my name is Larry Stevens, and I'm a member of the community and have been most of my life. As most of you know, I've been to most of these meetings over the last several months, and I've watched with interest things that are going on. And I think it's no secret to anybody that you've got a lot of interest out here and a lot of people concerned about what's happening here at Zion Bend. In tonight's agenda, there are several items in here that are part of the consent agenda. Out of all of those things, we're going to spend a lot more money tonight. And I bet you I don't hear one question from anybody on the board. I don't hear anybody asking why we're doing this, what we're doing it for, or why is it necessary. Later tonight, we've got a public hearing regarding the amended budgets, and I'm hoping that we're going to be allowed to talk at that time and ask some questions and get some answers about things that are concerning the entire community. This board has been very reluctant, I guess is a good word, to ask questions, to even demand answers. You guys are where the problem starts, or where the correction starts. Everybody works for you. And up here I see on the board, welcome to tonight's school board meeting presented by Superintendent Jesse Rodriguez. How does that work? You guys are the boss. You should be making the decisions. And I expect to hear some questions and answers tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roger. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Nordstrom and the board, the esteemed board. My name is Roger Whitmore, ZBTHS. In 1971, I've been a business owner here for 53 years in the Zion area. I've spent all 71 years here at Zion Bend in this area. As I toured the school recently, I was afforded that by a member, and the physicality of this place has really changed, and great job. It looks very nice. I marvel at the physicality of this place. The board certainly, well, previous board, I'm sure you guys spent your watt on this. All this new construction, a lot of it without any referendum, which I don't understand at all. So when we thought the Calvary was coming in the form of tax relief, the new money that's coming in from the energy bill, only to have Zion High School renege on this agreement, it kind of lit a fire under me too. The agreement, the city name of the taxing bodies, is something that we can't hold lightly. My personal business has lost revenue due to firms leaving Zion due to the oppressive levies and the taxes. Grand Appliance was one of my big accounts. They went to Sturtevant. As Mark, rest in peace, told me, in 10 years' time, you'll save $1.5 million going to Sturtevant versus Zion. But we lost Kiefer Sports Group to Bloomington, Illinois. It was much cheaper, Dill Brothers. She sat in my office, Kay Dill, when her father passed away, crying with her mayor, saying she couldn't pay her $72,000 tax bike that she had. And I'm thinking, how can anybody in business today pay $72,000 and still make a profit? We also lost Midway Supply, BAT, American Air Filter, Sherco Concrete, Common Tire. Many of them just couldn't justify the tax bike. So, with Zion enjoying the highest tax rate, it's really put the city of Zion in a catch-22, trying to attract new people, new businesses. And Mayor Hill and Dave Nagel made a pitch for Niagara Water Company. And they said themselves, Niagara, that it was the best pitch that they had received from any municipality, only to have them inch over the state line. You go up H, you go up Kilbourne Road, you'll see Niagara Water up there. And it certainly would have been nice to have them as a neighbor, as a customer. You go up to Pleasant Prairie, you see all the trains, cement trucks and so forth, and all the new construction. We could have some of that. Joyce, we should have some of that, but we don't. We had a lady call me, well, lady that I know, she's 83 years old, she's like a widow, and she's trying to turn in her life insurance policy so she can pay her taxes. And I'm thinking, geez Louise, this poor lady, if it was up to me, she wouldn't be paying any taxes at 83 years old. She's trying to live in her house. She's not going to be able to stay in her house. I've lost 2 customers just within the last month. Bill Hartman, you guys know Bill Hartman, good guy in the Park District Board, moved to Tennessee. His taxes are 1/4 of what he's paying here. Dr. Steve Thompson, even going to Tennessee. Certainly can't afford his taxes. If you ever up the knees, paying school levies, to the rate that we're paying right now, something's got to be done. You know, we thought there was going to be some relief. I would like to see the board act on that and give us a break. And you guys agree to it. You're not the only game in town. There's other people here involved as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Cleveland.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I know that what I'm going to speak about is a drop in the bucket in comparison to what's being said tonight. But for those of you who don't know, I'm Corey Cleveland. I'm here to advocate for extending the provision of food to all summer school students, not just the freshman focus group. For those of you who don't know, freshman focus is grant funded, and part of that money is used to buy food in the form of a meal bag. The meal bag usually consists of a cereal bar, fruit such as an orange or dried cranberries, and cheese. The students also get a juice to accompany their bag, and they're there from 8 to noon. While summer school students are here from 7:30 in the morning to 12:30 in the afternoon, and they don't get any district provided food. Some of those kids catch a bus as early as 6:55 in the morning to get to school. Math remediation students have class in front of the food that is offered to the freshmen, and all the other classes have to pass by that same cart of food to get a Chromebook from the IMC. Those conversations when students ask for food, but we have to tell them that it isn't for them, are heartbreaking, and that's why I'm here today. We used to feed our summer school students in the past. When I questioned why we stopped, I was informed that the district was throwing away more food than it was giving out. There must be a way to mitigate costs while still feeding hungry kids. A simple, quick suggestion includes making fewer meal bags each day till we find the ideal number needed. Depriving hungry students of food strictly because we don't want to waste money only hurts the students who actually need food. I have personally spent over $100 of my money just for session 1, which ended yesterday, and I'm not the only teacher doing this. Talking to summer school teachers, almost every single one of them has spent at least some sort of money on food for kids in the building for the summer. We should not rely on teachers to spend their hard-earned money to feed students when the district has the duty of doing so. We all know that equitable access to nutritious meals is fundamental for every student's ability to succeed academically and personally. Many of our students rely on school-based meals during the regular school year, and this need does not diminish over the summer. If anything, it increases during this time. By ensuring that our summer school students have access to food, we're supporting their physical health, which also directly impacts their capacity to learn and engage in their studies. Summer school often caters to students who are already facing academic challenges. These students need additional support, not only in terms of education, but also in terms of basic needs. It removes one significant barrier to their success, allowing them to focus more on their studies and less where their next meal is coming from. to sum up, providing meals for all summer school students is an investment in their health, academic success, and overall well-being. It aligns with our mission for educational excellence, which is constantly being preached at us. I urge you to fuel that excellence by taking steps towards making equitable meal provisions for the district and not by the teachers, for a reality for all of our summer school students. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for talking to us about that. We'll make sure we talk about it, and the administration might be reaching out to you. I apologize if I get the right last name incorrect. Mike Quebec. Did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
Yes, very, very well done, thank you so much. So my name is Michael Becky, I used to run the Zion Benton News, I used to own the Zion Benton Times, I ran the Zion Chamber for a long time. 12 and a half years ago, I was fortunate enough to be part of a committee to work on getting funding from the federal government, working with Brad Schneider and Senator Duckworth. So it's very, very near and dear to my heart. Our goals was always to reduce taxes. All of the different participants from the school board and the different government entities were always planning on reducing taxes. All of our feasibility studies, everything that we did, looked at reducing taxes to grow taxes so that we would have economic development, residential development, so that people would want to move into this area. I own the last phase of Cypress Park subdivision. There's no chance of getting it developed in this area. It cannot be done. It's not economically feasible. Nobody wants to pay these taxes. Nobody wants to come to our schools based on our ratings. We need to take a hard look at that. I would encourage this board to look at what's happened recently. Again, that was Mr. Hill's administration that put me on that board, but I also worked hand in hand with Mr. McKinney's administration and David Nabel and Sonalita Brunson, who have incredibly difficult jobs. We are very underfunded. Well, the school is building state-of-the-art facilities. We're trying to figure out how we're going to keep enough police on the street to make sure crime stays down. Mr. McKinney always talks about breaking down silos and working together. He's done that again when he came up here, extending a hand to a gentleman who called him sneaky, underhanded, and not transparent. Now, I'll tell you, the city had to decide to not advertise in our newspaper because they had tough taxes. Was I happy with their decision? Did I disagree with what they should do? Yes. Were they sneaky, underhanded, not transparent? No. The city helped fund the Chamber of Commerce. As the businesses left and the taxes were not coming in, did they decide to not be able to do that? They did decide not to do that. Were they sneaky, underhanded, and not transparent? No. They were making very tough decisions. And again, I got to credit Mr. McKinney, Mayor McKinney, for coming up here and extending his hand to a gentleman who should apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris,
Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As members of our community, we recognize the critical role you play in shaping the future of our children and the overall well-being of our community. I'd like to highlight the board's responsibilities, what I think they are, their impact on our region, and address an important issue concerning transparency. Some of the responsibilities I'm going to read off were found on the website iasb.com. First is representation. You represent the entire community. Students, parents, teachers, administrators, staff, homeowners, renters, taxpayers, local businesses, and even future residents. Your decisions should reflect the diverse needs and aspirations of all these groups. Rule adoption and enforcement. You adopt and enforce rules for managing and governing this school district, ensuring a structured and safe learning environment for our children. Monitoring performance. You should be regularly reviewing the district's performance, including academic achievements and financial health. Taking responsibility, you have to hold yourselves accountable for the board's actions and decisions. Continuous self-evaluation and professional development help maintain high standards of governance. The superintendent employment. Employing and evaluating the superintendent is a primary responsibility. A strong partnership between the board and the superintendent is vital for the district's success. Support the superintendent's recommendations and monitor their performance to ensure alignment with the district's goals that you have set. Delegation to the superintendent should ensure directives are clearly understood and implemented. This allows efficient administration while keeping the board focused on strategic oversight. Decision-making. Decisions are made collectively by majority vote during legally called school board meetings, ensuring transparency and accountability. Now I'm going to address some transparency issues. The school board and superintendent have accused the city of not being transparent in negotiations regarding the delegation of tax rebates. The city has vigorously disputed these accusations. While I don't claim to know all the facts, I find it somewhat ironic to question the city's transparency when the school board itself is still not publishing videos of its meetings online. Still, transparency is a fundamental aspect of good governance and should be upheld by all parties. Ensuring that school board meetings are accessible to the public through online videos would be a significant step towards greater transparency and accountability. By fulfilling your responsibilities and addressing these transparency issues, you not only ensure the smooth operation of our schools, but also contribute to the overall health and prosperity of our community. Your work impacts the lives of thousands of students and their families in the ZB community, shaping the future of our society. In closing, I ask you to remember that you as a school board are accountable to the voters and residents of this area, while the superintendent is accountable to you, the school board. Please don't forget this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just a couple comments, and I'm always careful to not have anybody feel like I'm refuting anything in public comments. So I'm just going to say it's obviously the topic of CJO money and the activities around that recently. It's been a long-term process. It's been an emotional process. It's a complicated process. I hope or don't think that anybody has intended to speak negatively or put anybody in a negative light. If that has happened, I'd be glad to talk to anybody about that and see what needs to be done to correct that. I do believe that as part of our conversation later, we'll include the discussion about our budget. The history of our district in trying to work to actively provide tax abatements is clear over the last 8 years of $15.5 million and going on $18 million going into this year. So we've continued to make sure to do that. I'm sure that the work around CJA could and will lead to more of that. So with that, thank you everybody for your comments. I appreciate your honesty and your openness to come and talk with us today. With that, we're going to move on from our public comment to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
So moved. Second.
Are there any changes or corrections? I believe we need to, for what was posted versus what is actually, for what was intended versus what actually posted, I believe we need to remove the minutes and take them up at our next meeting, because I think we have a technical glitch, and I don't think that's reflecting our May minutes for this meeting, so we'll take that up in our July meeting. So I move to, and we'll remove those from the consent agenda items. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have a motion and a second to accept that change?
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a motion, roll call on the remaining consent agenda items, please.
Mr. Benitez? Aye. Ms. Champagne? Aye. Ms. Stevens? Aye. Mr. Nelson?
Aye. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Nordstrom.
members of the board, administration, members of the public. I am proud to demonstrate and show you again this month our financial, our academic data, our performance as a school district. This month is preliminary data. Next month, we're looking forward to show you more complete data as things are being sorted out at the state level. So to start, I must say that with our financial enrollment, for Zion Benton Township High School, in the last 3 years, families are choosing to stay with us. We know that when they stay with us, and then they are with us as high school students, our graduation rate is much higher. That data will be demonstrated next month. But the work that we are doing as a school community, the work of our teachers, the performance of our students, the work of the administration, the direction of the school board under an strategic plan, where 4 years ago our graduation rate was 79%, looks very different today. We are about a 10% increase. That is remarkable. Our freshman on track has been remarkable numbers as well. Our students with post-secondary plans. So again, while there are many opinions out there, the facts speak clearly about the work that this board is doing. And the enrollment shows that even though we are projecting an X amount of students, as you can see in this graph, the actual enrollment is higher. So what that means is that families are choosing, they're selecting to stay in Zion Benton. In 2024, our projected enrollment was 2,480. Our actual is 2,582. That is testament of the excellent work that is happening in the school district. And in the prior years, the same thing took place. That our projected enrollment, we surpassed that number. And that has positive implications as it relates to our financial situation as a school district. So not only that, we also have proposals on the budget that will be presented today. And as you know, we engage in these budget carousels and this budget process where we don't plan a budget, we budget a plan. The plan is a strategic plan with 8 different metrics to measure our success. So the Finance Committee asked that I bring forward and talk a little bit about what was presented, what was proposed, what we approved. Our intent is to be cost neutral as much as possible. While the state has provided additional funding with evidence base, there's also additional cost. So for this year, we are approving, the board approved an SRO, we approved behavioral interventionist. We also approved things such as administration staffing and some changes with that. Professional services, capital items. So these are some of the items that were proposed. Everything green was completely approved and is moving forward. Things on red are on the works. Some of these items will be approved and addressed during the FY26 budget process. Not only that, we also have anticipated costs. As you know, with the loss of ESSER dollars, public dollars, whatever you want to call it, we have to reallocate and bring those costs into the general budget. Approximately $745,000, as you can see here, these are the items listed. And in those days, we were very concerned about social emotional learning, and we invested in social emotional learning. We maintained those programs because they have shown to us that it's needed. They have shown to us that they are low cost, high impact based on the needs of our students. So the board has made a big commitment, and we maintain all of those programs that we brought forward and those staffing levels during the COVID time. Other school districts have decided to eliminate that. Zion Benton did not do this. Again, it is clearly documented across the nation, other school districts had to eliminate because they couldn't sustain the cost. So in our school district, we work hard in making sure that we reclassify expenditures, in making sure that we bring new dollars, new monies. Today I sat with one of my administrators, and we applied for 18 grants last year. 18. Those are additional dollars that are helping us provide the services that we provide to our students, that are helping us negotiate contracts with our collective bargaining agreements that we're proud for, that we are honored to do. Again, that is extra work that the administration is doing, and those are facts. So, not only that, with our budget, here you have the cost and the different items that were approved with a budget amount. I am very, very proud that this process of this budget carousels, which we start in November, and administrators come forward with ideas based on the strategic plan for improvement, is how we do business in our district, where we're looking for a return on the investment. And that return you will see in the presentation here as it relates to academics. So with that, I'll pass it to our Chief Financial Officer, who will talk about the Energy Transition Community Grant and our plans with them, and the fact that we have always supported tax relief, and the fact that we have had discussions about making sure that tax relief is one of the allowable expenses in that grant. I want to hear that. I want to have conversations about that. Is tax relief an allowable expense right now? And even though it's not, we're still committed and we want to make sure that it happens for our community. But our elected officials and I will have a meeting on the 27th of this month, and we can have those discussions, because I am committed, and this board is committed to tax relief. And we are committed in utilizing the CEDIA dollars for tax relief. And we have communicated that. Our city administrator knows that I have shown commitment to that since day one. But our CFO will talk about this, and we'll continue the conversations, because there has been some information that is not accurate. So, with pride, thank you, City of Zion, thank you, Mayor, thank you, everybody that are here. Dr. Wilkinson for explaining our CEDIA grant intent.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Good evening, everyone. Just to talk a little bit about the Energy Transition Community Grant and talk about the original allocation that we proposed based on these four fundamental ideas. Just to talk a little bit about where we are in terms of tax abatement, because I know that's one of the areas that is important and connected to the Community Transition Grant. To date, since 2013, the district has abated over $15.8 million as part of our abatement efforts, as well as our tax rate is now down to $3.40 from an all-time high of $5.30 in 2015. So since 2015, continually through abatement process, actually 2013, we have abated $15.8 million and lowered the tax rate for the taxpayers in this district. To talk about the energy grant, again, these were the four criteria or goals of what we had done with our anticipated $3.4 million were to improve services, infrastructure, tax relief, and collaboration among the taxing bodies. When my understanding, when this was first distributed at the meeting of all the taxing bodies, our plan was one of those presented, and you can see here that the funding for the first round of the energy grant was for our MTSS and partial IMC renovation project. And you can see that's what's behind those tables over there going on right now. We're building a new MTSS center, a multi-tiered support system center for all of our students, as well as partial IMC, which is actually, to those, probably my generation, it's a library, but we call it the IMC. You can see that the way the distribution of our $3.4 million was proposed was $2 million would be utilized out of the district's fund balance. out of the education fund, $1 million out of the operation and maintenance fund, and then the site and construction fund, we would use $2 million of EBF funds as well as the 3.4 from the energy transition grant for a total of 8.4 million. That was our first year proposal. That was the application, the first application that came out, and what we had proposed to do that. For the process of getting to understand how that process would work, we did work with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development in the past, and did have some concerns because of the reimbursement. It was over 3 years. We did a project, and the reimbursement didn't come for 3 years. So you can understand our hesitation in jumping right into this without having our fund balances to help utilize that and not knowing what the payment process would be back. We did agree with our ABF committee that in the first year we would do 0 abatements because we did have a property tax relief grant through the state of Illinois that was helping funding our abatements. So in our first year, we didn't plan to do that. Now in our second year, we were planning to go to 10%, depending on what the funding levels would come through, because we did not get, I put 0 or 10 to 90% because we weren't sure whether or not our property tax relief grant 5 would happen. We applied, the district didn't receive it. So what we're looking for in the next phase of reimbursement is anywhere from 10 to 30% that we will utilize in abatement. So to the board, we're looking at about nearly $1 million. You abated 1.9 million this year, so we'll be cutting that down to 1 million, utilizing the proceeds from the CEJA grant. We will then abate our funding for our bonds for construction. So it's basically the CEJA funds will help support the construction and through abating our bonds. So we will continue that process. We've done that process of abating our bonds over the last 7 years that I've seen and worked with the district. So we will continue that process. And I'm glad to say we have gotten our first reimbursement for the CEJA grant for about $1.5 million. We're still owed $1.8 million. I have the invoices for the construction that's going on right now. I plan to submit those after this meeting tonight because they're actually on the agenda to be approved, and then we'll receive the rest of the reimbursement for the CEJA funds for this year. Yes, sir.
Yes, and before we move into our academic data, during the 2022 year, we had many community meetings in which we communicated to the community that services, infrastructure, tax relief was our intent. We publicly made it available to the public in October 25th, 2023, where we spoke about that. And we made it clear that tax relief was the intent and that District 126 supports tax relief under the CEJA grant. So I think once we have our meeting as leaders, a lot of things will be clarified, because we're not opposed to tax relief at all as a school district.
Thank you.
Dr. Diganji will talk to us about our preliminary data, performance data. And while we're very proud of that 90-90-90 approach and goals that we have as a school district in working together with our teachers, staff, and the performance of our students, I cannot be so more proud of that data that I've seen. We're like 1.5 years ahead of what I believe we were capable of doing. The services that we provide to our students and to our community. So Dr. Diganji will share with us some of the data and the positive trajectory that is happening in District 126 that I hope, I wish we can see that in every state, in every school district in the state of Illinois. So with you, Dr. Diganji.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Before I begin, I do only have a couple of pieces to share with the board tonight, but I would like to say that we know that there are so many ways that our students amaze us and show readiness in so many different measures, but I do want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit today about our pathway to proficiency, which has been a significant goal for us, and a 3-year plan that we put in place beginning as of last year that was really trying to look at and focus in on improving students' proficiency in literacy and math One measure looking at that is through standardized measures, but I'll share a couple of other data points today as well. So part of that plan, we focused explicitly on what was last year, the SAT. You can already see that ACT bullet has been updated as the state did make a change this spring to shift our college entrance exam that we use for state accountability. And we will be prepared for that, but we've really spent a lot of time as a staff examining, especially post-COVID, looking at where our students were so that we can make sure that they are prepared with the skills that they need to be successful in and beyond high school. But just wanted to kind of remind the board of where we're at, and that focus will continue. We just need to make some adjustments, and I'll share a little bit more about that as I go on this evening as well. So with that said, our data is out sort of preliminarily. I still want to get underneath it and look at it and wait till it is more finalized, but preliminarily, we are up this year with the work that we did on that first circle on the pathway to proficiency, which was really about alignment in our curriculum and building sort of a culture and investment around SAT at the time. And so right now, just wanted to share that district-wide, we're looking at anywhere among our buildings from a 1 to 5% simple increase or 20 to 55% change from last year to this year's data as far as evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics. District-wide, we're looking at about a 3% increase in ELA that we expect to see come final report card time in October, and a 1.5% increase in mathematics. I do want to share a little bit of context and why I've been so proud to work with our staff and to really invest on this in the difficult work. And as Dr. Rodriguez said, it takes multiple years to really work on that. So, you know, these small incremental gains, it may not seem like a lot, but it's really a testament to our staff, to our students, and the work that we've done to do that. So I did want to share a little bit about context there. And using the SAT, College Board has college and career ready benchmarks. I know I've shared with the board before that those benchmarks are different than the state of Illinois'. The state of Illinois has a 60-point differential between the College Board's research-based college and career readiness benchmark of 540, and then that math benchmark is slightly higher at ISB as well. College Board releases sort of their expected entry-level access point for getting to 480 and 530, which is on track. So it's been pretty remarkable, and we know we have a lot of work to do. I did want to look at where did the class of 2025 enter as ninth graders, and in EBRW, you can see they were at 395 and 376 as a collective whole. So again, just really proud so far of the work that we have to do, but we know we have quite a bit more work to do. I share this to say that our work is just beginning, and we have a lot more to do if we want to continue to see our percentages of proficiency increase.
Once again, Dr. You have to read about it. They're starting at 395. 480, 510 is starting. So that means that something special is happening in District 126 as our schools are labeled commendable. Something special as it relates to growth and the work that we're doing with our students is happening in our district. From the classroom, to the counselors, to the administrators, to the paraprofessionals, I mean the entire school community. So I am very proud. When I saw this data, it made me very proud because I am aware and I know the entry level. And the entry level is low. But we don't make that an excuse because our children is our most precious asset and we don't have excuses for it.
Also wanted to share, there's, as I mentioned, multiple measures of readiness. We have made it a point, college and career readiness is about more than proficiency on a college entrance exam. We put a lot of stock into developing our coursework to make sure that it prepares students for the careers of today and tomorrow. And we have seen significant increases. I do want to note, that's why this is preliminary. There's a 196% increase from 22-23 to 23-24 with regard to industry certifications earned within our school buildings. This data as of today, again, it's June, we do not have the tech campus data, so that data, once we receive tech campus data for our students who leave to go to tech campus, that data will just improve. But I did want to recognize at this point, just when looking at students who take coursework that leads to potential industry certifications earned, We had 216 students at Zion Benton Township High School earn an industry certification, and 25 students at Zion, what will be Zion Benton East. And I did want to point out that this year was the first year we had certifications earned. So again, quite remarkable. We're really proud of that work that happens largely a lot in our CTE classes. But again, readiness comes in many forms, and we are making sure we prepare students in multiple ways for when they leave Zion Benton Township High School District 126. The last piece of data I want to share with you today, and I want to go through it and just kind of remind the board what this is, because we typically only talk about it about once a year, is the Seal of Biliteracy. The Seal of Biliteracy is an incredible recognition that's given to students, graduating seniors. You can't earn it until you graduate. It goes on your diploma, goes on your transcript, who have demonstrated academic proficiency in more than one language. So the way that you earn that is to even qualify, you first have to meet college boards, and this is set by ISB, 480 ERW score, or have an access composite of 4.8, which means that you have exited out of English Learner Services. Once you have demonstrated English academic proficiency, you then are assessed in another language. Here we use the AP Spanish exams, or we use what's called APRA tests, and students will take a test in reading, writing, listening, and speaking in another language. Here we've been doing German, French, and Spanish. And students who score an intermediate, high, or advanced on all four of those areas, plus earn the 480 or higher English proficiency or the Access Composite of 4.8, then are eligible to earn the Seal of Biliteracy. And looking at from when we started back in 2017 to today, we had 66 students earn the Seal of Biliteracy. We have an 89 or the commendation toward biliteracy, which is, we might have missed it by, a hair in one of those areas. But that's an 89% increase. For us, we're looking at most of our students, 95.5% earning the highest level, so very few of those. The top pink bar are earning the commendation. Most of our kids are scoring at high levels in 2 languages and earning that. For us, when you look at the total size of the senior class, that's about 10% of the class that don't just speak 2 languages, are academically proficient. And where, to me, this is so remarkable. That is such a skill set in so many ways that is so valuable. I will be 100% honest, I could not earn that. I am not academically proficient in a language outside of English. So really proud the work of our world language teachers, our EL teachers, our world language department chair, our students. This is just incredible and should be celebrated, because 10% of our kids are academically proficient in multiple languages. So just wanted to share that tonight as well. And the last piece I'll kind of share tonight really just speaks to our goal of making sure all of our kids have post-secondary plans. As I've mentioned, there are multiple ways for our kids to be ready. A 4-year, liberal arts and science path, for example, that's one pathway, but it's not the only pathway. So we want to make sure that we have programming, that we have access that really prepares students for all sorts of post-secondary plans. And right now, I'm proud to report, and this is really due to the work of Mr. Carlson and his office as far as gathering this data, 90% of our students do have post-secondary plans. We did break that down for you. About 74% of those, their goal is to enroll. Their plan is to enroll in some form of post-secondary education, which should continue to inform the programming that we provide here in the district, because that's what a lot of our students are telling us they want to be doing. But even within that, there's a variety. 26% want to go to a 4-year, 31% 2-year. A lot of our students do go to CLC, for example. But you've got career or technical schools, trade schools in there as well. So again, post-secondary success and readiness has a lot of different looks to it. 5% tell us they want to or have enlisted in the military. 10% said they have a job. And then again, right now, that 10% we still need to reach. We're at 90%, either have no plan or they want to work, but they don't yet have a job. So again, just really shout out to Mr. Carlson, his office, for all the work that they're doing about making sure students are informed about their possibilities, making sure students have access to the kind of coursework that they need to do these kinds of things that they want to do. because all of this works together. With that, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about where we're going in the future. I will have a calendar amendment in July, as ISB's new contract with ACT will begin on July 1, so their spring assessment window will be finalized then. But for the last 6 years, the state of Illinois has been an SAT, so the data that you just saw was based on how our students have performed on the SAT, but they will be moving back to ACT, which historically is what the state had used, beginning this school year. There are some differences in the tests and how that they are set up. One has 2 sections where you've got some history and science mixed in for the SAT. ACT goes back and sort of stipends those off. You've got a reading test, an English, a math, and a science. But because of that change, the ACT science test will serve as the science proficiency element within the state's accountability system. I just don't have any details as far as benchmarks or what that will look like yet. As soon as I have that, I will be sharing that with our staff. I will be sharing that with you as the board, but that just hasn't been made clear to us as school districts. So I imagine sometime this summer or fall we'll be hearing more about that. But what does that look like? I want to kind of shift and where are we going in the future? That doesn't change the pathway to proficiency plan for us. We're still highly focused on what it is. You know, we will need to make some adjustments. There's actually already some curriculum writing going on this summer. There's some alignment work going on by our department heads right now. How do we make sure we make that shift seamless? So we'll be continuing that work around that first circle of the pathway to proficiency on curriculum writing. We'll be moving towards using some more real-time data for doing some in-house benchmark assessments with ACT. When we were an ACT school district many years ago, one of the benefits for us, we were able to align tests and do in-house testing and have data in our teachers' hands to use for instruction by the very next day. That is going to be a huge advantage for us moving back. You know, of course, as school districts, we don't want to be moving back and forth to do assessments all the time. But again, we're trying to look forward and look in a positive way. What are the things we can take from this switch? And with that, we're in talks with our peer committee to kind of use ACT and our practice ACT data to use that for our, as part of our teacher evaluation program. We will still move forward in that second circle of the pathway to proficiency, really focusing in on our high impact instruction. Lots of great summer opportunities that are going on related to our strategic plan. And then our teachers will be looking at 2 different pathways that, as far as student-centered classrooms or feedback-rich formative assessment, both of those areas have high impact on student learning, and so really diving in deeply 5 or 6 times to that next year. And then just for our staff trying to streamline academics. In July, my hope is to return, share with the board a little bit about where we're going, just trying to connect staff to resources and streamline all of our academics so that they have access to what they need all in one place. And I can talk a little bit more about that next month, but we are continuing, but we are ready to make that transition. As I said, the work is already underway. This is the big picture view. Our department heads will be working with the standards within each of their department areas, but at the end of the day, our goal here, we've taken a look at what does ACT cover between 9th grade and 11th grade, and those dark score bands that you see that go across the maroon. Our goal is making sure that we have exposure in different levels of emphasis in our different areas of coursework, and our goal is to make sure all of our students have access and are exposed to the standards that they will see on that assessment by the time they take it as juniors in 11th grade. So that's where you can see we're going from 13 all the way to 36. Does that mean all of our students are going to score 36 because we've covered? Absolutely not. Does that mean, we know that, of course we all wish that, but it does mean that you have a chance and you're going to see a lot more growth by at least being exposed and learning and practicing the kinds of skills that are important for students. As I mentioned, those learning pathways for staff, the professional development, this is what they will be focused on. Our staff this past spring already selected before they left for the summer which pathway they're going to participate in next year. In addition to our teachers, and this isn't up here, our special services staff will be focused in on crisis prevention and crisis intervention, as we know it's really important to make sure students are, when they're with us, that they're ready to learn and we can support them to make sure that they're ready to learn. But for our teachers, they're going to be, again, diving deeply into one of these research-based methodologies to really support what we call high-impact teaching. And lastly, as we've tried to continue to organize ourselves as we move forward with regard to academics, this kind of presents that pathway to proficiency kind of a little bit as an extension. It goes further. Obviously, the middle, yes, how students perform on our standardized assessments, it matters to us. It matters for students. We want to make sure literacy and math are important, but there's more to readiness, and that's why our kind of center focus is, are they ready for day 721 when they graduate high school? Are they ready to go out to the world and be prepared for college and career and life? And so obviously for us, that pathway to proficiency, it starts with that ACT skill-aligned curriculum. Instruction, how that's delivered matters. But then we also need to make sure that we provide student supports through our counselors, through our deans, through our MTSS. And then wrapped around all of that for students and staff is sort of using technology to support and enhance learning. So as we organize ourselves and move forward into 24, 25, again, you can look at it as a little hiccup that we have to make some changes and adjustments based on what, the state changes that happen, but we really don't see that slowing us down, and we see that as, again, just as an opportunity for us to continue to do the great work that we're doing with our staff to make sure our students are prepared for that day 721.
As you can see, this is a preliminary data. We will have complete data in addition to a website about academics at the school district in July. But in 2019-2020, 1990, it looked hard. It was hard to imagine 90% graduation, 90% post-secondary plans, 90% freshmen on track, 90% employee retention. It was difficult to envision that. Today, we do have over 90% post-secondary plans with the preliminary data that we saw today here. Today, we enjoy an 88% graduation based on the results from last year. This year, we will see what happens with that, but it used to be 79%. That's what I made that clear. Today, we enjoy over 90% staff retention, and we also enjoy over 90% freshmen on track. Through clear systems of learning for adults, our staff, and also for students, with technology integration, where there is a return on that investment based on a strategic plan approved by the board. And this presentation that you see here today was already viewed by board members. The curriculum committee under the leadership of Ms. Steven and other board members and Dr. Ligani discussed these options and also ideas and things that we need to do for the future. This is not the first time that this is viewed or discussed or argued or debated by the Board of Education. It's not. So I welcome you to those committee meetings as they are made available public, because that is where a lot of the discussion and the brainstorming happens, where the Board of Education is setting direction for the administration to deliver on the promise of making education excellent for all students inside Beto. So I am proud of the preliminary data. Thank you, team. Thank you, board, for setting direction. Thank you, public, for being here, because this is what it's all about. It's about student achievement. And those conversations are very, very energetic as it relates to us. And doing that in a way that is affordable and sustainable for our community. I finish with the fact that we also talk and discuss that as a school district, we are going to bring to the board a 3 or 5 year financial plan in October or November that includes tax abatements and sustainability for the school district for the next couple years. We negotiated contracts with our different unions. We're very proud of the investments that we made, because those investments, you clearly see the results. You clearly see the hard work that our administrators, our teachers, our staff are doing. And you see it with numbers. So I welcome you, I thank you for challenging the board and challenging me in making sure that academic performance is something that we review, because that is what we do every month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Any comments from board members before we move on? Okay, thank you. We will move on to board committee reports, starting with our curriculum committee. Okay. All right. So the content of Dr. Bianchi's comments were basically what this evening would be repeating. Move on to Business Bid Finance Committee, that will be with me. Business Bid Finance met on June 18th, and as is typical, we talked about most of the things that we're going to be taking up here in a few minutes as action items. We talked about public hearing and amended 2023-24 budget, 24-25 tentative budget, the 2024-25 department tentative budget and capital requests, 2023 clean school bus rebates, staffing update, and the capital improvements update. Other items discussed included the tax abatements and the topic of the CJ grant. Okay, any questions for me? Okay. Thank you. Next item, new business. Dr. Wilkinson, we'll start with you, right? Public hearing regarding amended 2023-24 budget. So, do I have a motion to open the public hearing to discuss the 2023, amending the 2023-2024 budget? Motion by Mr. Benitez, second by Ms. Champagne. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Champagne. Aye. Mr. Benitez. Aye. Ms. Stevens. Aye. Mr. Nelson.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Wilkinson will talk and present with us, and then, as was mentioned earlier, that will be the opportunity for the public if you have comments or questions that we might need to address as part of this action.
Thank you, President Nordson, Board of Education. Bring to you tonight the amended 23-24 budget, as we do annually at the June board meeting. Just want to reiterate some of the goals that we achieved this year, making this a successful budget year. Again, we completed our contract negotiations with all of our unions and settled them amicably, and they have been infused into the amended budget in terms of the retro pay from the times of the contract. Also this year, as I had mentioned earlier in the previous comments about the CJ grant, the board did abate $1.9 million back to the community this year, taking our tax rate down to $3.40, down from $5.30 in 2015. So the board has made significant progress in terms of reducing the tax burden on the local community members. The budget itself was presented in your packet. Basically, what I wanted to mention at this point, get at the end of, because we're not completely through the end of the fiscal year until June 30th. As of the end of May, our revenues were at 94% of budget. We anticipate by the time we get to June 30th that they will be nearer to 100%. Our expenditures as of the end of May were 81% of budget. By the end of June, we anticipate them to be near 90 to 92%. So in terms of overall effectiveness in the budget, we have a positive year this year overall. As mentioned earlier, we do amend the budget every June. It must be amended in order to reflect approved transfers and changes to revenues and expenditures that were not anticipated at the original time of the budget was approved in September. Upon approval of this amended budget, the projected overall fund balance will increase by $1,267,948. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you have positive fund balances in all of your funds, and that we anticipate an increase in overall fund balances of $1.2 million approximately. Upon approval of the amended budget tonight, that budget will be filed with the county clerk's office as well as the regional office of education prior to June 30th. And again, as I mentioned before, we have solid revenues coming in, expenditures are under what we budgeted, and again, we're going to see a positive estimated influx of about 1.2 million to our overall fund balances. With that said, again, the information regarding the budget as well as the resolution and certificate of approval, as well as all of the changes in the revenues and expenditures were included in your packet. And with that, I'll take any questions the board has.
Let's turn to.
Yes, sir.
Let's turn to the public part of the comment, or of the hearing.
After I get any questions from the board.
Okay. Okay, now there's an opportunity, anybody from the public who had a question or comment regarding our pending action to amend the 2023-2024 budget. Sure, come on, please, sir. Sir, Neil?
Thank you again. Can I just ask Dr. Robinson, property tax levies are a complicated issue. You're not dealing with them all the time. But I always say, whenever you talk abatement or tax rate, be careful, because it's a very complicated issue. I believe you said the abatement was going to go from 1.9 to 1 million, correct? So you're still going to be abating a million.
Yep.
But it's a reduction of 900,000, which essentially is an increase over what was collected in prior year of 900,000. Correct?
No.
It's less than you could have collected.
Correct.
That's through an abatement.
Right.
You're saying I could have collected this, but I did not through an abatement.
As long as we're keeping the tax rates going down, we're doing.
Okay. And then the rate decrease as well is always a challenge to address too, because during that same time period, property values increased 78%. The rate would have dropped in half solely based on market value alone, without doing anything. If you had kept your levies exactly the same, it would have dropped half. So it's higher, and the city's on this too. Our rate is down, but it's not because of reduced taxes. We're collecting more than we have. You're collecting more than you have. The rate is down due to market values increasing.
This year, because the CPI was 5%.
From the 2015 numbers that you presented to now, market value in 2015 was one of the lowest it's been, so the rate was the highest. Now the market values have recovered and the rate goes down. It's an inverse proportional relationship. So talking rate reductions is, again, just part of the story. It's a good direction ahead. You want your rates going down, absolutely, but I just be careful talking abatements and in rates without talking about actual extensions and levies and how much is being collected. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments during this portion of our meeting during public comment? Representative Mason?
Thank you. I just want to clarify something in terms of the abatements you guys have been discussing, or your superintendent has been discussing over the last few years. These abatements, so typically when you talk about an abatement, say we collect $1 million and we are going to give money back to the taxpayers. So we give $100,000 to the taxpayers in an abatement and we keep $900,000. So wow, that's great. This organization just abated money that they could have kept and could have used, but they gave it back to the taxpayers. Well, the abatements that you were discussing that have been happening over the last few years are not that scenario. They are property tax relief grants that came from the state. Yes, you had to apply for them, but that money is not money that was yours to keep. It was money that the state, based on legislation that I helped pass a number of years ago, provides some property tax money to abate, but it doesn't take anything out of what you've collected. So let's call apples apples and oranges oranges. You got a state grant that is helping the taxpayers, but you are not giving up any money based on the goodness of your heart.
Anybody else? Mr. Stevens.
Hi, Larry Stevens again. I agree with what's being said by the people here, and listening to the stories here tonight is like watching a pea under a shell. We have to keep track of what's being said from one meeting to another. It changes from time to time. Now, independent of what you're saying about abating taxes and reducing things, you're asking for a $5.5 million increase this year. You went from $77 million to asking for $82 million this year. How is that helping our citizens in this community? That's almost 7% increase. As I look through here and see some of the things in your budget, you're taking monies from the education fund and putting them over into capital projects fund. You're putting them into operations and maintenance fund. You're putting them into building funds. You know, that money is intended for the education fund, not for the building fund, not for bricks and mortar. It's for taking care of kids. You know, in the U.S. News and World Report, which I pulled up, it indicates that there are 17,655 high schools in the United States. Zion Benton ranks in 12,911 in that, the bottom 25%. Are you guys proud of that? Independent of the numbers you're putting up here, how can it possibly be true that 90% of our students want to go on further education when only 30% take the ACT? These numbers don't correlate, folks. You put numbers up here that they're 13% proficiency in reading, we're 11% in mathematics. We have a 35% truancy rate and still a 95% graduation rate. We can't be producing a good product. Independent of what you're saying up here and putting things on the board, it doesn't correlate. Those numbers that Dr. Wilkinson came up with as far as tax rates, those happen naturally. That's nothing the school does. The county assigns those. You're taking credit for something you're not doing.
Any additional comments or? Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing to amend the 2023-2024 budget? Motion by Ms. Champagne.
Nobody has any questions
Second
about
by
the
Ms. Stevens.
$82 million? You're gonna be kidding me.
We're told how to vote.
Okay, we're not gonna have that, okay? I will say, and it has been mentioned before in prior meetings, and it was mentioned earlier in this meeting, we have significant conversation at committees, so the thought that we would somehow restate or re-ask questions.
How can that be true when you only have 3 people in the meeting? That's by law, you can only have 3 people, you can't have the full board there. How can you be discussing it?
How can the board know, how can everyone on the board know everything when only 3 people are allowed? And no questions.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? I'm sorry, I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens. Aye. Ms. Champagne. Aye. Mr. Benitez. Mr. Nalso.
Aye. Okay, that was the public hearing portion.
$82 million.
Regarding the amendment of the 2023-2024 budget. Now, item B is the approval of the resolution to amend the 2023-2024 budget. If there's nothing further, because you done your presentation. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendation to approve the 2023-2024 amended budget resolution, certification of the board secretary and chief financial officer, including the projected estimate of the revenues for 2024-25, and to file the amended budget and certifications with the Lake County Clerk's Office? I vote no.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Champagne,
I second it. No.
second by Mr. Benitez. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Benitez. Ms. Champagne. Ms. Stevens. Mr. Nando.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, approval of resolution of distribution of 2023-2024 corporate personal property replacement taxes.
Thank you, President Nordstrom, Board of Education. I'm bringing to you a resolution regarding corporate personal property replacement taxes that are in the budget and require a resolution for distribution of how you distribute those funds. I'm here to say that the distribution has not changed from the original budget that was presented in September. We will have $180,000 anticipated for the IMRF Social Security Fund, which is the pension fund for your classified staff. We will have 1.5 million in the education fund, 600,000 in the operations fund, and 835,000 in the transportation fund. And again, these were the same dollars that were allocated in the original budget approved in September. I just want to make a comment too, as we've gotten more information and coming through and out of COVID, these numbers over the last couple of years have been pretty inflated in terms of the funding received for corporate taxes, but we are anticipating decreases in these fundings next year. So when I bring these numbers to you in September, you will see there will be an actual, most likely a significant decrease in the corporate personal property replacement taxes that we will be afforded next year. So I just bring that to your attention. But again, these have not changed since the original budget was presented in September.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the recommendation to approve the resolution for the 2023-2024 CDPRT distribution as presented. Motion by Ms. Champagne. Second by Ms. Stevens. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Champagne. Mr. Benitez. Ms. Stevens. Mr. Nando.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, approval of the 2024-2025 tentative budget. Dr. Wilkinson.
Yes, thank you, President Nordstrom, Board of Education. Each year, upon approving the amended budget, we put out our tentative budget for the 24-25 school year. Again, these are estimated revenue and expenditures for the operation for next school year. We look at our fund balances from what we anticipate to end this fiscal year from the current amended budget. We look at estimated expenditures from June 30, 24, fund balances upon amending the budget. Again, those numbers are all included in estimates that we make at this point of the year. The budget, the tentative budget itself will be tweaked and up and down as we get new information from the state and federal government in terms of what we can expect in terms of funding for our grants and other programs. So the tentative budget will be continued to be refined throughout the summer. The final budget will be submitted to the board for approval on September 24th at the regular board meeting, and a public hearing will be held at that time. So in looking in terms of the tentative budget, some of the things that I'd like to talk about that we intend to highlight next year, and some of the revenue notes. As I said earlier, we plan the abatement of $900,000 for continuing those abatements as part of our program on our bonds. Looking at instructional increases due to our contract obligations. I can't speak to the energy grant in terms of, I have that included as a projected revenue in terms of our plan for the next project that we're planning to do with the district, which is updating our band and art rooms, as well as some other areas in the school. Right now, the application hasn't been released yet, so it's still pending whether that funding will be available for that project or not. As stated earlier, we did address contracts. I want to speak a little bit about our health insurance program for next year. You may recall from our May board meeting, health insurance increase was 6.3%. That's the lowest it's been in probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years. So we were really excited about that increase. I want to commend the Board of Education during the negotiation process. We were able to make our insurance health plan equitable for all employees. You may recall we had some higher cost premiums from some of our classified staff for family insurance. We were able to bring that down. And I'm pleased to report that in terms of adding new bodies to the plan for family insurance was neutral. We had 2 members choose not to take family anymore, and then 2 were added on, so it was a wash. So in terms of costs for family insurance coverage, we'll see our 6% increase, but there was no increase as a result of lowering premiums for classified staff and having a large increase to that plan. So that's very exciting. It was the unknown factor that we weren't sure how many people would go on the plan. In terms of the single plan, we were added 2, dropped 1. So single grew by 1, but that's one of the larger groups in the plan, so that was fine as well too. We also had a couple of members who are in the PPO Plus, which is the plan that was before it was grandfathered out. We had 2 members who had PPO Plus single go from PPO Plus single to PPO single. So in terms of where we look at our health insurance, which is a significant cost within the budget, nearing the neighborhood of 5.6, almost $6 million, depending on where we come out in claims this year. It's good to know that we're kind of neutral in terms of the plan and the program growth. So as we look at the budget next year to plan for that expenditure, we will see a more moderate increase in that for next year. So again, as I said, these numbers are very tentative. We will get numbers over the summer from the state and federal government that will help us refine this budget and get it more closely aligned. Again, I'm pleased where we ended this year. As I said, as of the end of May, our revenues are at 94%. We anticipate 100% within the next 3 or 4 days here. And then our overall expenditures as the end of May, 81%, looking for that to fall in a neighborhood of 90 to 92%. So a very positive year in terms of our budget. The board was able to achieve all of its goals that it intended to do as part of our strategic planning. Very proud of that as well. And looking forward to developing and bringing you next year's budget based on our criteria and priorities based on our strategic plan.
Okay, thank you. Before I ask for any questions, do I have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the 2024-2025 tentative budget as presented at this meeting? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Benitez, second by Ms. Champagne. Any questions?
Yes.
Ms. Champagne.
Yes,
Whoa!
Dr. Wilkinson.
Please.
Yes.
I see there's a $5 million increase in revenue. What sources would that be from? Is it all from property taxes?
Oh, no, absolutely not. That's basically the majority of that will come from our state and local, or I'm sorry, state and federal funding sources. As it was mentioned earlier, we applied for 18 grants. Most of those are federal and state grants. So
this is cost.
we're putting it in there right now because we don't know if we're actually going to get them or not.
Right.
So the hope is that we will get those and that revenue will be $5 million. It could come in at $3 million. It could come in at $2 million. I can't tell you today what it's going to be. That's why this is a tentative budget. So you can't read a whole lot into this right now, but when we come back in August and September, when we've refined it, we found out whether we've received the grants or not, we'll have a better target. But you kind of go out as far as you can,
Right.
but then you recoil back when you find out exactly what you're going to get. And that's why I caution the board about corporate taxes, because we know they're going to start coming down. The state has already notified us. We're aware that that's going to happen. But that's only one revenue stream from the state that we get, so.
Okay, one more question.
Sure.
Our expenses have gone up about $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that contract negotiations?
No, primarily we've seen it with our capital construction projects. That's where the majority of our biggest increases are coming. But you have to look at those not as expenses, but investments that we're making in this facility for this community and our students. And that's kind of the perspective we've taken from our strategic plan, that we're making strategic investments that have, low cost, high impact. We always talk about that. And we feel by deferring maintenance on this facility, you're just adding costs later on. So why not make the investment now and make it pay for itself?
How old is the oldest part of this facility?
I'm sorry.
How old is the oldest part of this facility? It's over 50 years old?
Yeah, it was constructed in 1973, and we still have a couple of areas that look that way. So we basically upgraded our science classrooms. The science classrooms, were in pretty bad shape. We now have 21st century science classrooms and labs. We're working on our next project for our band and art rooms. The theme and the goal of our strategic plan is 21st century learning. And the only way we can do that is provide facilities that fit the definition of 21st century learning spaces. And that's been our goal all along, the Board of Education's goal.
So we haven't had to scrap any old buildings?
No,
And we took an empty building and turned it into a career and technical center?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, it takes the money.
I'm sorry, I should have provided the share microphone, but I wasn't paying attention. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens. Mr. Nordstrom.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, approval of 2024-2025 department tentative budget and capital requests. Dr. Wilkins.
Yes, thank you, President Nordstrom, Board of Education. Within the tentative budget that we approved, we have departments within the organization that we do departmental budgets. We put those all together. They're approximately $4.4 million, which is a 15% increase from the last year's budget. The things that go into that is the slide you saw in the budget carousels, some of those items. Other current budgets that relate to the department needs, as well as grant funds to address the instructional and operational needs within the current year. And the budget also includes some one-time expenditures for band instruments, technology, and food service equipment. So those things that we need to keep things up to date and moving forward are included. The budget also includes new technology, professional licensing services for loss of digital equity grant. We as part of the COVID funds, we received a digital equity grant that has helped us make significant leaps and bounds. As you've seen the monitors all throughout the school district, we communicate through those with students and staff. Those funds are no longer available, so we're adding more to the technology budget to fill in the gap that was lost for that grant. We also have some increases for the operation maintenance fund, transportation, as for their capital needs that were identified in the capital needs assessment. So again, the overall 24-25 budget will continue to be refined this summer, and we'll have additional information regarding state grants, state budget grants, federal, all those other fine details that need to be refined before we can actually bring this to you in September for approval. Which will be done on September 24th. So that is the report I have on the department's budgets. And they were included in your packet for review as well.
Thank you. A motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation for approval of 2024-25 tentative departmental budgets and requisitions for purchase and inclusion in the 2024-2025 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Champagne, second by Mr. Benitez. Any questions? One question I had, I think I asked it during BBF, was anything significant that was asked or brought forward that we were not able to entertain or that was deferred that you can recall?
Just a couple of staffing positions that I think we're going to kind of hold off to see where grant funding can come from and potentially use the grant funds to support those for a while. But for the most part, I think we were able to achieve everything we needed to achieve our goals for next school year.
I generally look at it, it's people, stuff, and services, so it was really people, and there wasn't any stuff or services that had to be
Very few.
deferred.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Mr. Benitez. Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, approval of 2024-2025 CODA recommendations. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. The first one up is the CODA recommendation, which is a certified occupational therapist assistant with oversight by an occupational therapist. A couple years ago, we began to do this. It is cheaper to pay a certified occupational therapist assistant with the occupational therapist oversight than it is to hire a full-time occupational therapist. So we've done this the last couple of years, and so we bring this to the board in June to get your approval to continue that process.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendations regarding the CODA services, staffing services?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stevens, second by Ms. Champagne. Any questions?
Is there any plan in the future to hire within, without going to this company? Is there like a plan to hire full-time?
A full-time occupation, not at this point. The costs don't match up at this point. But that can change from year to year as new students, come to us and have different needs. Every year that could potentially change.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, approval of 2024-2025 CEDAW contractual service recommendations.
All right, thank you. Again, this is to fulfill a need. Again, we don't have a need for a full-time hearing itinerant, so we enter into a contract with CEDAW to get part-time services for the students that do need it. And Mr. Benitez, kind of speaking to your question from the last time, this is on a year-to-year basis. As kids come to us who might need more hearing services, then we might look to adjust to this, but currently we contract with CEDAW, so we're looking to continue to do that to offer services needed by our students.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the recommendation for contractual services through CEDAW as presented. Motion by Ms. Stevens, second by Mr. Benitez. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. Approval of fee for service contract agreement. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. So this is a request to enter into a contract with R&G Consultants, which help us. It's a third-party billing agency that assists us with collecting Medicaid reimbursements. So in the end, it's a company that helps us to collect money on behalf of the district.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the recommendation to approve the fee for service independent contractor agreement with R&G Consultants as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Champagne, second by Ms. Stevens. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Mr. Benitez. Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. Approval of service agreement for psychological services. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. So I believe this is either the 4th or 5th year in a row that we have had an open school psychologist position, and again, 0 applicants. So just as a need, we have to go outside and contract for services to make sure that we're meeting the needs specifically for special education students and special education testing.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve this service agreement with the Center for Special Education Services as presented? Motion by Mr. Benitez, second by Ms. Stevens. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Benitez. Ms. Champagne.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens. Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. Approval for the student mobile device policy.
I'm going to begin, but yes, you can come up here, Dr. Bridge and Dr. Pavelchek. So we did bring to the policy committee back in April, and we mentioned to the board that we were working on a policy to update our agreement for student mobile device usage. And so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Bridge, who's going to update the board and seek your approval.
Hi. Okay, so specifically focusing on the district-issued electronic devices section of the student handbook, there are some key updates that we would want to make. On page 1, in the 1-1 device care, the language has been updated to reflect the use of both iPad and Chromebooks in our mixed environment now. The loaner procedure changes. The third bullet now states that there be a full replacement cost of the loaner will be added to the student's account until the loaner is returned in good condition, and that replaces the $5 daily charge. This change aims to encourage the return of those loaner devices each day. The fourth bullet point has been added to limit the temporary loaner devices each semester, with exceptions, of course, to students with devices under repair. This encourages students to come prepared to school each day. There is a failure to comply statement where the language has been changed from failure to comply to the above standards will result in disciplinary action, which will include, but not limited to, parent-guardian conferences and SSC and suspension. We changed that language to reflect a policy where it supports personal accountability rather than being punitive, and instead it now states behavior correcting action instead of being punitive. Acceptable use policy for students on page 4 has been updated to reflect modern trends in technology, including copyright, AI, and other emerging technologies. And the language is now focuses on the positive aspects of acceptable use, specifying what students should be doing rather than highlighting the inappropriate use and consequences. And then lastly, the one-on-one device information and liability. The addition of iPads into our environment for 9th grade students automatically comes with insurance. And so those options, then the options for the Chromebooks for insurance for our 10 through 12 will continue as an option. And then we've updated some costs, and full replacement costs for devices have been added to ensure that families are aware of the associated expenses. And then last, there is a repeat of that loaner limit per semester, which aims for building that accountability and encouraging our students to come prepared every day for class. And we believe that those changes are going to foster a more supportive and accountable learning environment for our students. But now Dr. Pavelchek is going to elaborate on our plans.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bridge. So if you remember a few months ago, I had alluded to the necessity to have to make some modifications to this. And we're just at a place now where we need approval because we need to update our student handbook. And for the most part, everything is very supportive of what we're trying to create, which is a blended environment right now as we're trying to phase in the Apple iPads for our students, right? Along with just keeping up with what current trends are out there and making our acceptable use a more positive list of expectations where it was very negative and you can't, you shouldn't, don't, kind of statements, right? So we have purposefully left consequences very vague, right? We have language that states we will limit the amount of loaners, and that's purposeful language because as I mentioned a couple months ago, in order to really create the supportive steps that are necessary for both administration, our bookstore who manages our loaners, the financial commitments we make, but most importantly, those that are impacted most, which are our teachers in the classrooms who expect students to show up every day with a mobile device that works. We need more time to partner with those folks to create a collaborative agreement with how we are going to make sure that our students are adhering to that responsibility of showing up every day with a charged Chromebook or iPad ready to do work. To make blanket statements and limit students right now would significantly impact the situations in our classrooms, because we need to make sure that our teachers know that we're supporting them by supporting students to show up with those devices. So the timing of this just makes it difficult for us to get too concrete with the consequences. But that's okay. I feel very comfortable, Dr. Bridge feels comfortable that once we get back to school and once we start partnering with the teachers in the union to make sure that we can come together on decisions on how we're going to help those students be responsible to show up every day with that device. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were clear what's in this. Does not negate what I had presented a couple months ago. Okay. And we're glad to take any questions you might have as well.
Let me get a motion in a second first. A motion to accept the changes suggested for the student and parent handbook regarding mobile device. Motion by Mr. Benitez, second by Ms. Stevens. Any questions for Dr. Belichick or Dr. Burridge?
My concern is
Oh, I'm sorry.
that
You're soft talking.
my concern is that
Talk right.
so my concern is that, you said if the students don't bring to school, you're going to charge them. You're going to add it to their.
Keep in front of you. You're not copying.
You're going to add to their bill, school bill.
So currently, the current practice is $5 a day. For every day, it's added to their bill. And what we're proposing is, if it doesn't come back at the end of the day, the full charge or the full cost of the device will be added to your account until it's returned. And
Okay,
then
so
when
if
it's
they
returned,
bring it in
it comes
every day,
off.
they don't get charged.
Correct.
Okay, that's what my concern was. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, our goal is to eliminate what we currently have, which is punitive consequences that befall students who do not bring charged devices. We're in essence eliminating that. That's a very complex task for what ends up being a small amount of students. And we need to navigate that process by also making sure that in that partnership, there's a strong understanding, not only in the walls of this school, but also out with our families, that we really need every student to show up with that charged device. We'll work with students, and we know that there are extenuating circumstances either at home or just because we have to fix devices. Like we are going to take care of all of those students.
Okay. So what happens if the student doesn't bring the device back? So let's say the student number, let's say the student lost.
Well, similar to what we do now, we do a lot of reaching back out to that student, to that family. And so like any of our capital investments in products that we provide students as loaners, per se, and that extends to these devices, it would extend to textbooks, it would extend to not PE, but like athletic uniforms and JROT uniforms, it's the same process. We work hard to connect with the student first, also then that student's family. Then we work to get that product back. If that product is not returned back, then we're left with adding those kinds of fees and charges. But as we've alluded in the past, we're very limited to also what we can collect depending on the economic status of students too. So it's a challenging process with regard to that. But does that help, Chris? Right.
So if you never get that device back and you steady adding this $5 every day, that you gotta think, okay, maybe the parents can't afford to pay this money. And so by the end of the school year, you may owe $200 or $300.
Well, we hope to catch that well in advance of at any point getting to that point. And we're eliminating that $5. And and our records then would also indicate that if a student came back, already had a loan amount, and they have not returned that back, we are not giving a student another loaner out. That would then prompt us to start to reach out to that family and then work with that family to get it. Because in the past, Ms. Stevens, that was what we did. And to your point, it ended up being very problematic for us.
It's just not effective.
Right.
So all those laptops and iPhones will be insured.
Well,
Chromebooks are optional insurance. The iPads automatically, I purchase insurance on all of them, automatically for 4 years.
Who's paying for the insurance? The parents? The parents paying for the?
for the Chromebooks,
For the options, yeah.
I believe it's
$30.
$30 a year.
Okay, anything else? We have a motion and a second, roll call please.
Ms. Champagne. Aye. Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Mr. Nonso.
Aye, thank you. Final business item, action item, approval of ZBTHS District 126 FY 24-25 Board of Education and Committee meeting schedule. It was included. I didn't hear any questions initially, so we get a motion to accept this, and then if there's questions, we can deal with them. A motion to accept the schedule as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Champagne, second by Ms. Stevens. Any questions or comments? There's been an opportunity in the last several weeks if people had changes or corrections. Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Ms. Champagne. Aye. Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Mr. Nonso.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Brings us to other business, capital improvements update. Dr. Wilkinson.
Yes, thank you, President Nordstrom, Board of Education. As I do every month, I'll bring you some photos regarding the construction projects that are currently going on in the district. It's our Phase 2 MTSS and partial IMC renovations that I talked about a little earlier as it pertains to the CEJA grant. We're utilizing $3.4 million of CEJA funds to fund these projects. As you can see from the photos on there, there's some work being done out on the front facade. They've completed most of the walls in the area of the MTSS Center, and they're starting to put in the ceiling tiles and that type of thing. You can see on the end there, they've taken some more wall out in the IMC and reconstructing the wall figures there in the library area. And then finishes, they've started to do some of the finishing drywall on some of the you can see those are the pillars that hold the structure up in that area there. Drywall and painting, and then here we can see the walls. They're starting to do the painting, finishing on that. And then the final picture in the corner there is the main gym. You can see that they've started removing all of the bleachers. They are painting the entire gym white with maroon accent. We will be getting new bleachers as well as 2 new state-of-the-art high-def scoreboards. We will also be implementing banners to recognize the history of the basketball players that have played in that facility. Mr. Nemi, our athletic director, is working to recognize and honor those past basketball players. And we're just really looking forward to the first Friday night game because it's going to be amazing. What do you think, Jack?
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so very excited about that, and more to come as we get closer. Probably to the August board meeting, we'll have a tour for the Board of Education, and we plan to do the opening of our gym facility as well as our MTS and partial IMC renovations as part of our celebration at the beginning of the start of school with our D-Bash. So more information about that to come.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Wilkinson? I know we had a chance to look at it last month before some additional work was done. That's very impressive and going to be a great hub for a lot of the learning activities that are going to affect most of our students.
Yeah, the focus of this phase of the project was really on the academics. The gym, supports academics in that we, our athletes have stronger grade point averages and higher school attendance when they're participating in programs. So it's all connected.
And we have a liability issue with what you're saying. So.
Yeah, right. We don't want to go down that road anymore.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Nothing for Dr. Wilkinson? All right, thank you. Is there any other business under other business? Hearing none. That brings us to closed session. We have a motion to go into closed session. Consideration of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for more than one or more classes of employees. Motion by Mr. Benitez, second by Ms. Champagne. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Champagne. Aye. Mr. Benitez.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens. Aye. Mr. Armstrong.
Aye. Thank you. We're moving to closed session.